13 years. That's how long it had been since I last saw my son. 13 years of birthdays without a phone call. 13 Christmases where I set an extra plate on the table out of habit. And then quietly put it away before dinner started. You don't stop being a mother just because your child forgets you exist. So when I heard the knock that morning, I almost didn't open the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. And most of the people in my neighborhood knew better than to stop by unannounced. But some quiet, foolish part of me told me to look. When I did, my heart stopped. There he was, my son, Kevin, standing on my porch like a ghost that had finally remembered where he came from. He wasn't alone. Beside him stood a woman in expensive heels and a tight smile, her manicured fingers laced possessively around his arm. "Hi, Mom," he said, his tone casual, as if he hadn't disappeared for over a decade. "Mind if we come in?" For a second, I couldn't speak. I just stared, my mind replaying every night I'd cried myself to sleep, wondering if he was safe, if he was alive, if he ever thought about me. Now here he was, smiling, confident, and completely unaware of the storm raging inside me. "Of course," I said finally, stepping aside. "Come in." They walked past me without hesitation, like they still owned the place. The woman, Nora, as I'd later learn, glanced around the house, her eyes scanning, every corner as if she were already planning where the furniture would go. The smell of her perfume was sharp, invasive. It filled the room faster than her words. "Lovely home," she said with that fake sweetness some people use when they're already judging you. I told Kevin it must be so lonely living in a big place like this. "All by yourself." I smiled, though it took effort. "It's peaceful," I said. "I enjoy the quiet." Kevin set his suitcase down near the stairs, pretending not to notice the awkward silence stretching between us. "We thought we'd stay for a while, Mom. Maybe help you out around the house." "Help me out," that's what he said. The son who hadn't visited once since his father's funeral now wanted to help. I looked at him, really looked. His suit was expensive, but the fabric had wrinkles. His smile was too forced, and behind that confident tone, I saw desperation. I'd raised him. I knew that look. Something was wrong, but I didn't say anything. I just nodded slowly and said, "Of course, dear. You can stay in your old room. It's exactly how you left it." As I walked away to make tea, I caught a whisper between them. "She bought it," Nora murmured. Kevin didn't respond, but I saw his jaw tighten. That night, as I lay in bed listening to the faint sound of their voices through the thin walls, I realized something. My son hadn't come back for love. He'd come back for something else. And whatever it wasn't going to end well. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of bacon, something I hadn't cooked in years. For a moment, I almost smiled. Maybe Kevin really was trying to reconnect. Maybe I was being too cynical. Then I walked into the kitchen. Nora was standing in her silk robe, sipping coffee from my favorite mug, the one my late husband gave me on our 25th anniversary. Kevin was seated at the table, scrolling through his phone as if he owned the place. "Oh, morning, Mom," he said casually. "We figured we'd make breakfast for you. You deserve a break." I forced a polite nod. "That's very thoughtful." But my eyes caught something odd. The dining table was covered in documents. Bank papers, printed statements, even my property file. "What's all this?" I asked, pretending not to sound alarmed. Kevin smiled nervously. "Oh, that's nothing, Mom, just, we're trying to make sure you're handling things properly. You're not getting any younger. And we want to help manage the house. Bills, all that." Nora jumped in, her voice sugary but sharp underneath. "It's just that big houses like this can be overwhelming. We wouldn't want you to make mistakes that could, cost you everything." I looked between them, my son and his wife, and something inside me turned cold. "Oh, I managed just fine," I said softly. "Been doing it for 13 years. The air went heavy. Nora gave a tight smile and changed the subject, but I saw Kevin's eyes flicker with frustration. After breakfast, I went upstairs and quietly checked my study. My desk drawers, the ones I kept locked, had been opened. The keys were still warm. That was all the confirmation I needed. They hadn't come home to reconnect. They'd come to take. That evening, I called my friend Martha, my lawyer, though no one knew that but me. I told her I needed to update my will and to keep it confidential. She agreed, no questions asked. By the third day, their act had started to fade. Kevin became impatient. He spent hours on calls, whispering about investors and debts. Nora roamed the halls, taking photos of my house, pretending she was just admiring the decor. At dinner, she finally slipped. "So, Mrs. Turner," she said, "I noticed she didn't call me Mom anymore. This house must be worth a fortune now. You ever think about downsizing? Maybe letting family help manage things?" I put my fork down slowly. Family is supposed to protect each other, Nora, not manage them like assets. She laughed softly, exchanging a glance with Kevin. "Of course. I didn't mean it like that, but she did, and I knew exactly what they were planning." That night, I pulled out a small box from my closet. Inside were my late husband's letters and a copy of the legal documents transferring every asset into a private trust, something Kevin didn't know about. When my husband was dying, he told me one thing I'd never forgotten. If you ever feel betrayed by the ones you love most, make sure they can't destroy you, even if they try. Lying in bed, I realized I was about to put that promise to use. Kevin thought he could come back after 13 years and take what wasn't his. He thought he was the clever one. But he'd forgotten one thing. He might be my son, but I was his mother, and I'd learned long ago how to survive without him. The next few days, I played the part of the fragile old woman. I smiled, nodded, and pretended to be grateful for their help. Kevin thought he was in control. He started handling my mail, offering to simplify my finances. Nora spent her afternoons making phone calls, her voice low but urgent. I heard her once, whispering to someone, "She's clueless. Give us one more week." They truly believed I was blind. But I've lived long enough to know that the best way to defeat a liar is to let them believe they're winning. So I waited. Every morning I'd cook breakfast and ask sweetly, "How did you two sleep?" Every evening I'd leave the house for an hour, telling them I was going to the market. But in reality, I was meeting Martha, my lawyer. Together, we drafted a new will, one that left the house, the accounts, and every last asset to charity. Kevin would inherit nothing. Martha advised me to record everything, their words, their threats, even the subtle manipulation. I hid a small audio recorder behind the flower vase in the living room. It captured more than I expected. One night, after they thought I'd gone to bed, I heard them talking in hushed tones. "Nora, once she signs those papers, we can finally sell the place. Kevin, she's stubborn, but she's old. I'll convince her by tomorrow." Nora laughed. "You better. We can't afford to wait." That was the moment my heartbreak turned into something colder. I wasn't sad anymore. I was done pretending. The next morning, I served them breakfast with a smile. Kevin looked tired, anxious. Nora scrolled through her phone, avoiding eye contact. "So," I said cheerfully, "I've been thinking about what you said. Maybe you're right. Maybe I do need some help with the house." Kevin's head shot up. "Really?" "Yes," I said softly. "You're my son, after all, and I'd like you to have what you deserve." He looked relieved, almost smug. "That means a lot, Mom. I knew you'd understand." I nodded. "I've even spoken to my lawyer. She's preparing the paperwork." I watched the excitement in his face, the way his shoulders relaxed, how Nora's lips curved into a satisfied grin. They didn't know that Martha had already rewritten the documents to exclude them completely. "Could we meet her?" Nora asked sweetly. "Just to make sure everything's handled properly?" "Of course," I said. "She'll come by on Friday." The rest of the week passed in tense silence. They tried to act natural, but greed has a way of making people impatient. Kevin started asking questions about my accounts. Nora began snooping through drawers again, thinking I didn't notice. But I did. I saw everything. On Thursday night, I pretended to have trouble sleeping and went downstairs. I found Kevin sitting in the dark, holding one of my checkbooks. He looked startled when he saw me. "Oh, Mom!" "I was just, checking something for you." I smiled faintly. "Always so helpful," I whispered, then walked past him. He didn't see the small red light blinking behind the vase, still recording every word. When I reached my room, I finally let myself breathe. For the first time in years, I wasn't scared or sad. I was ready. They thought I was weak, but they were about to learn that the woman they'd abandoned had learned to fight back quietly. Friday would be the day they realized who they were really dealing with. Friday morning arrived bright and calm, but the air inside the house was anything but peaceful. I could feel it, that strange, heavy tension before something finally breaks. Kevin and Nora were already dressed, waiting in the living room. Kevin wore the same suit he'd arrived in, pressed and perfect, trying to look respectable. Nora had on a designer dress, her smile polished but tight. They were expecting victory. I walked in slowly, carrying a tray of tea and biscuits. pretending not to notice the way. Nora's eyes followed the hallway leading to my office. "She'll be here any minute," I said. Kevin nodded, fidgeting with his tie. "Good, it's about time we make this official." A few minutes later, Martha arrived, calm, confident, briefcase in hand. I introduced her with a gentle smile. "This is my lawyer, Martha Green. She's been helping me get all my paperwork sorted." Nora greeted her with that sugary voice again. "It's so nice to finally meet you, Martha. We just want what's best for Mom." Martha didn't even blink. "I'm sure you do." We sat around the table and Martha pulled out a neat stack of papers. "These are the final documents your mother has asked me to prepare," she said. Glancing at Kevin, Kevin leaned forward eagerly. "So this transfers the house and assets under my management, right?" Martha gave a polite, professional smile. "Not quite. This is a revised will and property transfer agreement, signed by your mother, ensuring her estate is protected." Nora's brow furrowed. "Protected? From what?" Martha looked directly at her. "From anyone who might try to exploit her kindness." Silence. Kevin's smile froze. "Wait, what are you saying?" Martha flipped a page. "I'm saying that, effective immediately, this property and all financial holdings are now part of a charitable trust. Your mother remains the primary occupant and beneficiary for life. Upon her passing, the estate goes directly to the foundation, not to any individual." Nora's voice broke first. "What? You can't be serious." Kevin slammed his hand on the table. "Mom, what is this?" "You said—" "I said I wanted to make sure you were taken care of," I interrupted softly. "And I am. I'm taking care of my piece." His face turned red. "After everything I've been through, after losing my business, you're doing this to me." I looked at him, really looked at him. My son, the boy who used to hold my hand crossing the street. Now a man consumed by greed. "I waited 13 years for a hug," I said. "You came back for a signature." He tried to speak, but no words came. Nora's mask finally slipped. "You're insane, old woman. You think this is over? We'll fight this." Martha calmly packed her papers. "You're welcome to try, but I'd advise you to listen first." She pressed play on her tablet, and from its small speaker came their own voices. "Once she signs those papers, we can sell the place." "She's clueless. Give us one more week." Kevin's face went pale. Nora's mouth fell open. I leaned back, my voice steady. "You forgot I taught you how to hide secrets." "Kevin, did you really think I couldn't find them?" The room went dead silent. Kevin looked at me, not with anger now, but shame, the kind that burns deeper than rage. "I never wanted it to be like this," he whispered. "Neither did I said softly. "But you made your choice when you walked away 13 years ago. You didn't come home to see your mother. You came to see what you could take." He lowered his eyes. Nora stood, furious. "Come on, Kevin, we're leaving." For once, he didn't move. He just sat there, staring at the papers in front of him. The final proof that everything he thought he'd win was already gone. As they finally left, the echo of the door closing was the only sound in the house. And for the first time in 13 years, I didn't cry. Because I realized something powerful. I hadn't lost my son. I'd simply stopped letting him lose me. That night, the house was quiet again. No voices, no arguments, no false smiles. Just silence. Beautiful, sacred silence. I made myself a cup of tea and walked out to the porch. The same porch where I had once stood, watching the road, hoping one day my son would come home. He had, just not in the way I imagined. The moonlight spilled across the garden. The one I'd planted when Kevin first left. Each flower had been a promise to myself, to keep growing, no matter who walked away. Now, 13 years later, they were in full bloom. Inside, Martha's folder sat neatly on the table. The trust papers, the recordings, the insurance that ensured no one could ever use me again. For years I had thought strength meant forgiveness, letting people back in because they shared your blood. But real strength, I learned, sometimes means closing the door and locking it behind you. My phone buzzed once. A message from Kevin. Just 2 words. "I'm sorry." I stared at it for a long moment. No anger, no joy, just peace. He wasn't the boy I once raised, and I wasn't the woman who once begged for his love. So I typed back, "Take care, Kevin." And that was it. No drama, no tears, just an ending that felt like freedom. In the weeks that followed, the town started whispering again. Word got around about how Barbara, the quiet widow, had outsmarted her greedy son and his wife. People called me clever, strong, cold. Maybe I was all 3, but I didn't do it to prove anything. I did it because, for the first time in my life, I realized I didn't need to be anyone's mother, anyone's savior, anyone's victim. I just needed to be me. With the lottery money safely invested in the trust, I started something new, the Second Chances Foundation. It offered small grants to women rebuilding their lives after being cut off or abandoned by family. It felt poetic, helping others find the kind of independence I had fought for. Every week, new letters arrived. Women thanking me, telling me their stories. Each one different, but all with the same ache, being forgotten by people they loved most. Sometimes, late at night, I'd read those letters aloud to the empty living room, and I'd whisper, "You're not alone anymore," because that's what I'd needed to hear 13 years ago. One afternoon, while watering the garden, I saw a car stop at the gate. Kevin stepped out holding a small box. He didn't try to come in this time. He just placed the box on the gatepost and nodded. When he drove away, I went to see what he'd left. Inside was an old photo, him at 12, arms wrapped around me, both of us smiling. Underneath it, a note. "You were right. I had to lose everything to understand what mattered." I folded the note and placed it on the mantel beside the old graduation photo. Not forgiveness, but understanding. Sometimes that's enough. As the sun set, I looked around the house, my house, and felt a peace I hadn't known in decades. It wasn't just about keeping the money. It was about keeping myself. I smiled, whispering to no one and everyone. He cut me off for 13 years. But the moment I stopped needing his love, I became richer than I ever imagined. And with that, I closed the chapter. No bitterness, no regrets, just freedom. He left me for 13 years, but when he came back, he didn't find a broken mother. He found a woman who finally learned her worth.